Hey, it's Soleil, and this is episode 112 of the Orange Pill Investor. And today I want to talk about days to expiration. I I like hearing the different rationales for different expiration dates that my option seller friends choose. And there's two different days to expiration that I feel have the best rationale for. They have good logical reasons behind them. And then I will talk about some of the reasons why I think a lot of the other days to expiration don't really make much sense. So let's just take a look. The way that these options work is, for example, if you're choosing a $1,000 strike, that's $32 below the share price. So there's $32 of intrinsic value in this $1,000 option, because if you exercise it, you're going to buy these shares for $1,000, and then they're worth $1,032. So you could make $32 a share. But it wouldn't make any sense to buy this option and then exercise it and make $32 a share when the option costs you $50. So that's why you can't just buy options, immediately exercise, and make a shitload of money. The other $18 is extrinsic value, and that's built into the time. So every day, this theta is going to, this little Greek down here is going to drain out of this option until at 0 days of expiration at 4 p.m. on Friday, every last drop of the $18 will have drained out of this account. And yeah, so with 2 days left, it does kind of make sense that there's $18 worth, and basically $9 is going to drain out tomorrow, and then the other $9 will drain out on Friday. And then this, at expiration, this option will be left only with its intrinsic value. So at 3:59 on Friday, when this is about to expire, its worth will be exactly the distance between the strike and the share price. So this option will be worth $32 at expiration on Friday. And most options expire worthless, which is why I sell them and I let them expire worthless for the other guy. All right, so if we switch this over to the sell side, none of the numbers change. The buyer's on one side, the seller's on the other. So when you flip from buy to sell, the prices are still the same. But when you go up above the strike price, there's no intrinsic value whatsoever, because if you exercise this for 1060, you'd actually make a loss. So there's no intrinsic value here. So that means out of the money, OTM, which is above the strike price, when we're talking about calls, is all of this value is extrinsic. There's no intrinsic value to this whatsoever, because you cannot exercise it and make anything off of it. So by expiration, it's the same as this, whereas before, this $50 one has $18 worth of extrinsic value that has to drain out of this account. This 1060, for example, has $23 of extrinsic value, and approximately $10 will drain out tomorrow, and theta can also change day by day. So if $10 drains out on Thursday, then that means there's $13 left. So theta on Friday would have to be 13. And that's one thing that you'll notice, especially for calls that are near at the money, at the money or near at the money. When on the very last day of expiration, theta can accelerate big time, because it has to get this option to zero. Extrinsic value has to go to zero by expiration. There's just no ands, ifs, buts about it. which is why I like to sell weekly options, because if I sell a covered call at the 1100 strike and I get paid $1,300, all I got to do is sit and wait, and this entire 1,300 goes to zero, and I can buy this back for a penny, or let it expire worthless and just keep the whole thing. However, there are now with MicroStrategy in particular, this can be extremely dangerous, because if this rockets up to 1,500, granted you made 1,300, but you're going to have to pay the other 400, which you probably end up having to let these shares get called away unless you have a shitload of buying power available. Which is why I try to bake in a lot of call away value. The call away value is the distance between the current share price and how far up you go. So this is worth about 1030 right now. If you pick the 1060 strike, that's building in from 1030 to 1060, that's $30 worth of call away value. You go all the way up to the 1150, 1150 minus 1032 is 120. This would have $120 worth of call away value. But you can also see the more potential profit you build in for call away, the less premium you're going to be able to collect. And that's generally what I do, is try to find a good compromise between how much premium I want to collect and how much call away value I want to build into the trade. And with MicroStrategy, I'm way more cautious about making sure I build in a lot of call away value in case there are any violent upside moves. I got particularly wrecked when MicroStrategy went from 600 to 2,000 or whatever in 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks, whatever that was. So I definitely did not profit nearly as much as the folks who just held. Now, most people just hold, and that's all they do is hold. So really, unless you sold at 2,000, you didn't really take advantage of that either, which is kind of one of the other benefits of selling covered calls, is you're constantly mechanically emotionless. It's an emotionless way of saying, okay, I'm happy to take profits at 1,200, for example. I make 20% this week on call away value. I make 4%, and this is only for half a week. I make 4% in premium, and I'm happy to take my 20% profit, whatever. If that was the decision that I wanted to make in this particular case. I'm sorry, not 4%. 1% of 1,000 would be 10, so this is like 0.5%, 0.4%. But that's only for half the week. So that's my decision-making process for choosing strikes. But the reason why I do weekly calls instead of longer days to expiration, I'm just going to go at the money because it's going to be a little bit easier to track here. So at the money, at the 1040 strike, I can get $30. If I go to next week, if it was double, and actually this is a really horrible example, because the first week is 30, but there's that's for half the week. So really it should have been like 50 or 60. And so if it was 50 or 60 for the week, you would expect double to be, yeah, this isn't going to work since it's friggin' Wednesday. I should really do this on a Friday for weeklies. But, and damn, Robinhood is not refreshing the whole screen. So I can't even see what 1035 is anyway. Week. All right, so you can see that this increased by $30, but really, if it was 50 for the week, then double should have been 100, and this is definitely not 100. So let's look at 1040 for the next week. If it was 60, or 50 or 60, and then 100 to 120, and then 150 to 180, that's not even close to that. So if it was 50 for the first week, and then only 30 for the second week, and then it went from 60 to 88, that's 28 for this week. So it went up 28, and let's do, what was it, 88, 12 and 6 is 18. So now it's only going up 18. So if you can see the pattern, what you can get for 1 week does not double just because you go to 2 weeks. And it doesn't triple when you go to 3 weeks days to expiration. And it doesn't quadruple when you go to 4. You're getting diminishing returns every week out that you go. So that's my rationale for choosing weeklies, because if I was doing at the money, I can get $30 every single week. I don't do at the money, but let's just say I was going to do 1,200, or here I'm 11.50. So $7, I can get $7 a week. This is Wednesday, so double it, instead of next week maybe only getting 5, and then next week only getting 3. So that's why weeklies makes the most sense to me. But Tasty Trade has a bunch of research that showed that 45 days to expiration is kind of the ideal. Oh my God, what is wrong with my computer today? I don't know if this is my computer or Robinhood, but the values are not loading. That's weak. Let's see if this does me wrong again. Oh boy. All right, let me just try a different ticker. Right at the money, 26 cents. Okay, I guess Riot wants to load. And then let's see, so for the whole full next week, it went from 26 cents, added another 28. So what we get in half a week, going to the second week, is taking the whole week to get. And so this is going to go from 54 to 70. Now it's only 20 cents more. And then from 73 cents, you're only going to get 17 more cents. So every week that you increase, you're getting, the premium is higher, but the amount of premium per week is decreasing. So that's why I stick to 1 week expirations. However, as I was saying, with Tasty Trade's research, they claim that, of course, oh, you son of a bitch. All right, let me try Tasty Trade. They were a little bit stuck in between. Yeah, once you go out so far, there's only monthlies. But then once you get close enough, they start opening up the the weeklies again. So we'll just go to 37 days to expiration. But if you were going to go down here to like the 80% and sell like a 1350 and get paid 6100, their research shows that theta really accelerates at 45 days. And so then you would hold this contract for 2 to 3 weeks, and you would attempt to close this early and collect about half of this. So you're going to sell it for $6,000 and then buy it back for $3,000 in 3 weeks, and then pocket the $3,000, and then it's called rolling. You'll roll this out then to whatever the 45-day expiration is. So in 3 weeks, this 37 would turn into like the 23 or the 16, and then you'd close this trade, and then you'd go back out to the 45 days-ish one. And even in that scenario, it doesn't really seem to keep up with the 1 week expirations that I like to do, the weeklies. However, and I don't even find there to be much of a maintenance problem. I just roll my calls every Friday and spend 30 minutes maybe doing it. But if that was too much for you and you only wanted to like go out 45 to 60 days and then roll once a month every 4 weeks, you just roll your 60 down out to 60 again, or go to 45 days and then 3 weeks later roll it out to 45 again. I guess that would be, you'd really only have to roll your calls every 2 to 3 weeks if that's more of a low maintenance strategy for you. The other thing that Tasty Trade says is by going out to 45 days, it gives you time to be right. So if the price of the stock goes up, you're not going to be able to roll this call at 2 to 3 weeks for half the profit, because instead of the value of that call going down and you can buy it back cheaper, the value of that call is going to go up. So at that point, you would have to decide whether you wanted to roll and see if you could get a profit or maybe break even, or if you just wanted to let that call run some more and possibly even get exercised and have your shares called away if it went above your strike price. But that's kind of the point, is when the chart is bumpy and it's up and down and up and down. So if you sold your covered call here and then it went up to 1,300 and that was above your strike price, if you just wait another couple of weeks, it's back down here, and then you could just roll without having to pay a debit. Except if you're selling your covered call here and you let it just run, it can just continue to go against you, and it's even worse when it gets up here. So the time to be right argument doesn't really sway me too much. I prefer to just take the guaranteed max profits week to week, because the extrinsic value has to go to zero by expiration date. I don't really need to worry about, does theta accelerate at 45 days or 60 days or 21 days or whatever the hell the number of days is. I know that theta is at its absolute maximum on Friday at expiration, because every last drop of that extrinsic value has to vacate that option. And that's why I don't give financial advice, but that's why I'm fairly happy to call selling covered calls guaranteed returns, because when that person pays you this money, if you sell the 1,200 strike, and if they pay you that $2,000, you'll see it reflected in your buying power. You can spend it away. You can buy some shares, which is what I generally do. If I sold this for $2,000, I would go and buy 2 more shares of MicroStrategy. So I'm kind of going short to get paid a premium, and then that allows me to go 2 more shares long, unlimited upside. So you're definitely limiting your upside on the 100 shares, but I use that to add to my stack and end up going longer and longer over time. So unfortunately, ran into a little bit of technical difficulties with frickin' Robinhood not really loading these options chains. I don't know if it's just because it's after hours, it's so late in the evening, or whether I'm having some, I mean, it can't be my internet because Tasty Trade's, oh, yeah, Tasty Trade's loading the values no problem. So Robinhood might have, you know, the hamster wheels over at Robinhood might not be running at full speed. So yeah, so that's my theory for days to expiration. The 2 ones that make the most sense are either the weeklies that I do or 45 days to expiration. And I've seen some people do 2 weeks because that's more premium than 1 week. But if you just do 1 week this week and 1 week next week, you'll get more premium than you would if you just went out 2 weeks. Same for 3 weeks, same for 4 weeks. Once you get to 45 days, okay, that you can at least argue that theta is at its maximum acceleration at 45 days, and that lasts for 2 to 3 weeks. So then you can argue that you can just keep rolling and rolling and rolling. That makes sense to me. But if you get too far away from 45 days, like going over 60 just makes no sense to me whatsoever. Let me see. Is this going to let me? If I go here. Yeah. So take a look at theta. Theta going out 140 days, that's almost 6 months. Like not even a whole penny is draining out of this a day. And it's just going to get worse. If you go out 260 days, it's 0.6 of a penny draining out of this. So if you're like, oh, you know what, I want to go out to frickin' 2026, look at all this premium I can get. Yeah, but you're going to have to wait a year and a half for even a couple of cents to drain out to collect any of this money. So the closest I'll come to giving you financial advice would be to say that going out past 60 days, selling options just doesn't make any sense because you're not going to be able to collect any of it. You're not going to really start collecting until you get to about 60 days. So if you go to 6 months, that means you're going to sit around for 4 months waiting to get to 60 days while this value stays almost identical. You're not going to be able to, the only way that you would be able to roll this for a profit is if the price of the stock moved. And so that just completely defeats the purpose of selling options. Selling options, you want to collect this theta that's draining out every day. And the only way to collect it is to get close enough to expiration. Oh, of course. Get close enough to expiration theta even on here? Maybe I'll customize it next time. For theta to increase and be meaningful is the point. So 7 days to expiration is my preference. but I do find 45 days to expiration kind of acceptable from a logical standpoint if you're using Taste Trades research. But anything in between, or certainly anything past 60 days, has no option selling value as far as I can tell. And 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks is just somewhat inferior to 45 days. So for me, if I don't do a weekly, I'm going to do 45 days-ish. A little more, a little less is not a big deal. However, the reverse is true when you're buying an option. So a lot of these people YOLO, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to buy this call for this week, and you know, if I buy the 1,000, I'm going to pay $5,000 for this. Well, theta is steadily draining out of here, and all of the intrinsic value, the $3,000 has to drain out of this by Friday. So time is your enemy. But if you go out to 2025 and buy an option out here, theta is very tiny. And what hurt you as an option seller is now to your benefit, because only a few, you know, pennies or dollars in this case, because MicroStrategy is so expensive, are draining out of this per day. So you want theta to be very small when you're buying options, but you want it to be as large as possible when you're selling them. And that's really all I'll say about buying options, because I'm not much of an options buyer. Occasionally I'll buy a deep in the money leaps and create a synthetic stock out of it, which I would use to sell covered calls against. So really, even in that strategy, I'm only buying the call so that I can use it as collateral to sell the call. Yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it. Unfortunately, Robinhood was not playing nice, and that's kind of a pain in the ass. But this is what I do. I sell covered calls, collect the premium, buy more, buy more Bitcoin, buy more shares of MicroStrategy, and keep trying to rack up more and more shares of MicroStrategy until I gather another 100 shares. And then once I've got an additional 100 shares, sell an additional covered call, collect more shares, try to get another 100 shares. So that's the goal. And if you liked it, give it a shot. All right, be good, Joe.